She gave everything to a stranger who had nothing. The next time she saw him, he was on the throne, and the court was screaming because their alpha king chose a nobody as his queen. The screams started at midnight. PLS hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification button to get notified on our next interesting story. Tell us where you are watching from. Lyra pressed her hands over her little brother's ears, pulling him deeper into the shadows of their crumbling shed. Through the cracks in the wooden walls, she watched flames devour the village square. Guards in crimson uniforms dragged families from their homes, throwing anyone who resisted into iron cages mounted on wheels. Lyra, I'm scared, 7-year-old Finn whispered, his small body trembling against hers. Shh, don't make a sound. Not a single sound. This was the third collection this month. The Alpha King's tax collectors showed no mercy. If you couldn't pay, they took your children instead, sold them to work camps in the northern wastes, where most died before seeing their next birthday. Lyra's fingers dug into the dirt floor. She had exactly 3 copper coins hidden in a tin beneath the floorboards. 3 coins that were supposed to buy bread for the next 2 weeks. But the tax demanded 5 silver coins per family. She might as well have been asked to pluck stars from the sky. The guards moved closer. Their boots crunched on gravel, heavy and deliberate. Check every building, a cold voice commanded. The quota isn't filled yet. We need 10 more children before dawn. Lyra's heart stopped. Finn's eyes went wide with terror. She did the only thing she could. She shoved Finn into the crawl space beneath the floorboards, covering the opening with their only blanket and a pile of rotting straw. Then she stood, smoothed her torn dress, and walked out to meet them. Well, well, the lead guard sneered, looking her up and down. What do we have here? Where's your family, girl? Dead, Lyra lied smoothly. Fever took them last winter. I'm alone. Alone means no one to pay your taxes. His grin was cruel. You'll fetch a decent price at the breeding camps. Pretty thing like you. Horror flooded through her. But before the guard could grab her, a commotion erupted at the far end of the village. Shouts. The clash of steel. Someone was fighting back. The guards forgot about Lyra instantly, running toward the disturbance with weapons drawn. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed Finn from his hiding spot and ran into the forest, her bare feet flying over roots and stones, her brother's hand clutched tight in hers. They ran until her lungs burned, until the sounds of the village faded behind them, until they collapsed beside a frozen stream, gasping for air. We can't go back, Lyra panted. Ever. Finn's face crumpled, tears streaming down his dirt-streaked cheeks. But where will we go? Lyra had no answer. The forest was dangerous. Rogues and wild beasts hunted here. But staying near any village meant capture, death or slavery. Those were the only options the Alpha King's regime offered people like them. We'll survive, she said, trying to sound brave. We always do. But as the winter wind howled through the bare trees and snow began to fall, Lyra wondered if this time survival was just another lie she told herself. The cursed stranger, 3 days in the forest, nearly killed them. Lyra and Finn had no food, no shelter, and no idea where they were going. They drank from half-frozen streams and huddled together under fallen logs at night, praying wolves wouldn't find them. Finn's lips turned blue from cold. His cough grew worse with each passing hour. On the 4th morning, Lyra woke to find him burning with fever. No, 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 she whispered, pressing her hand to his forehead. It was like touching hot coals. Finn's eyes fluttered open, glazed and unfocused. Lyra, I don't feel good. I know, sweetheart. I'm going to find help. I promise. But there was no help. Not out here. Not for people like them. She wrapped him in both their blankets and left him hidden in a hollow tree, promising to return. Then she stumbled through the forest, desperate for anything that might save him. A village. An herb. A miracle. What she found instead was death. The man lay crumpled against a boulder, his clothes torn and blood-stained. At first, Lyra thought he was already dead. But then his chest moved. A shallow breath. Another. She should have kept walking. A dying stranger was not her problem. She had her own brother to save, but something made her stop. Maybe it was the way his hand was pressed against his side, trying to stop the bleeding. Maybe it was the sheer desperation in his half-open eyes when he sensed her presence. Maybe it was just that she knew what it felt like to be abandoned by the world. Hey, she said softly, kneeling beside him. Can you hear me? His eyes focused on her face. They were an unusual color, pale gold like honey in sunlight. Despite the pain etched across his features, there was something almost regal about him. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, dark hair matted with blood and dirt. "Water," he rasped. Lyra pulled out her tin cup, the only possession she'd managed to keep. She filled it from the nearby stream and held it to his lips. He drank greedily, some of the liquid spilling down his chin. "Thank you," he managed. She examined his wound. Deep gash across his ribs, probably from a blade. He'd been attacked. By who or what? She didn't know and didn't ask. "I'm going to die here," he said, his voice hollow. "The curse won't let me shift. Can't heal." "Curse?" Lyra frowned. "Which got me good." He laughed bitterly, then winced. "Serves me right for trusting the wrong person. Now I'm stuck in human form, weak, pathetic." Lyra didn't understand what he meant about shifting, but she understood pain. She understood helplessness. She pulled off her outer shawl, her only protection against the cold, and pressed it against his wound. "Hold this here. Press hard." "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone should." She tied the shawl in place as best she could. "I have nothing else to give you. No medicine, no bandages, but maybe this will slow the bleeding until you can find help." "You're giving me your only shawl." He stared at her. "In winter, when you clearly have nothing." "I'll manage." "Why?" Lyra met his strange golden eyes. "Because kindness is free, and maybe the world needs more of it." She stood to leave, but his hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "Wait, what's your name?" "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "I won't forget this. You don't need to remember me. Just survive." She pulled free and turned away. "Wait," he called again. "You're hurt, limping, and you look half-starved. Take this." He pulled something from his pocket. A small cloth bundle. When Lyra unfolded it, she found dried meat and a piece of hard bread, traveler's rations. Her stomach clenched with hunger so sharp it was painful. "I can't. You need this more than I do. I'm dying anyway. You have a reason to live. I can see it in your eyes. Someone's counting on you." Tears pricked her eyes. Finn. She had to get back to Finn. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the food. "No, thank you, Lyra." His golden eyes held hers. "If I survive this, I'll find you. I swear it." "Don't make promises you can't keep," she said softly. Then she ran back through the forest, the precious food clutched to her chest, not knowing she'd just saved the most powerful shifter in the kingdom. The hunt begins. Kale Ashenblade, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, watched the girl disappear into the trees. Even through the blinding pain, even with the witch's curse burning through his veins like liquid fire, he felt something shift inside him. She'd given him her only shawl, fed him her last food, asked for nothing in return. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, where every smile hid a knife, this starving girl with haunted eyes had shown him pure kindness. The curse prevented him from shifting into his wolf form, blocked his accelerated healing, reduced him to human fragility. The witch who'd done this had been one of his father's enemies, someone who'd waited years for revenge. She'd caught him alone, distracted, and struck fast. He should be dead by now. Would be dead, if not for Lyra's intervention. The shawl she'd tied around his ribs had already soaked through with blood, but it was enough. Just enough to keep him alive until his guards found him, and they would find him. They were tracking him, even now. Kale pressed his hand harder against the wound and focused on staying conscious. He thought about golden brown hair and determined eyes, about a girl who gave when she had nothing, about a kindness so rare it felt like myth. "Lyra," he whispered to the empty forest. "I will find you." Hours later, when his elite guard finally located him, Kale was barely conscious. "My lord!" Captain Theron dropped to his knees beside the king, his weathered face pale with shock. "Who did this?" "Witch. Nera of the Blackwood Coven." Kale's voice was weak. "She's working with the rebellion. Wanted me dead before the Harvest Moon ceremony. We'll hunt her down. She'll pay for..." "Later." Kale gripped Theron's arm. "First, I need you to find someone. A girl named Lyra. Brown hair, about 20 years old, traveling with a young boy. Probably her brother. Somewhere in these woods." Theron blinked. "My lord, we need to get you to a healer immediately." "The curse." "The girl saved my life. Find her." "It wasn't a request. Yes, my lord. They carried Kale back to the fortress on a stretcher. The royal healers worked through the night, using every remedy they knew to counteract the witch's curse. By dawn, Kale could finally shift again, could feel his wolf rising beneath his skin. The wound closed rapidly, leaving only a thin scar. But he didn't forget. While his advisors argued about retaliation and security and all the political implications of an assassination attempt, Kale sent Theron back into the forest with 50 scouts. Find the girl named Lyra, he commanded. Bring her and her brother to the fortress, unharmed. Offer them sanctuary, protection, anything they need. The court won't like you bringing commoners into the fortress, his senior advisor warned. Especially not now, when we're trying to project strength. I don't care what the court likes. Kale's voice was ice. That girl saved my life when I was helpless. She gave me her only possessions and asked for nothing. I owe her a debt, and I always pay my debts. The advisor wisely fell silent, but finding one girl in a vast forest proved harder than anyone expected. Theron's scouts searched for 3 days and found nothing. No trace, no trail. It was as if Lyra had vanished into smoke. It's possible she didn't survive, Theron said carefully on the 4th day. The forest is dangerous. Rogues, wild animals, the cold. She survived. Kale's certainty was absolute. Keep looking. What none of them knew was that Lyra had found a secret cave system, ancient tunnels carved into the hillside by long-dead miners. She'd hidden there with Finn, nursing him through his fever with the food the stranger had given her. The dried meat had probably saved both their lives. While the Alpha King's guards combed the forest above, Lyra huddled in the darkness below, whispering prayers to gods she didn't believe in, begging them to let her brother live. She never suspected the dying man she'd helped was anyone important. She never imagined he was searching for her, and she certainly never dreamed that her simple act of kindness had set in motion events that would change the kingdom forever. The fever broke on the 7th day. Lyra woke to find Finn's eyes clear for the first time in a week. His forehead was cool, his breathing steady. Relief hit her so hard she burst into tears, clutching him close. I'm okay, Lyra, he said softly, patting her back with small hands. Don't cry. I thought I'd lost you. She couldn't stop shaking. But you didn't. You saved me, like always. She pulled back, cupping his thin face. He looked so small, so fragile. 7 years old, and he'd already seen horrors no child should witness. Their parents dead, their village destroyed, running for their lives through a frozen forest. We can't stay here much longer, she said, forcing herself to think practically. The food is almost gone. We need to find civilization. A village that might take us in. Will they hurt us like the last one? Lyra's throat tightened. I don't know, Finn. But we can't survive out here alone. They emerged from the cave system that afternoon, blinking in the weak winter sunlight. Lyra had no idea where they were or which direction to go. She picked a path at random and they started walking. 3 hours later, they stumbled onto a road. It was well maintained, clearly used for trade. Deep wagon ruts cut through the frozen mud. That meant civilization. Safety. Maybe. Which way? Finn asked. Lyra pointed south, purely on instinct. They followed the road as evening fell, keeping to the tree line in case they needed to hide quickly. Better paranoid than captured. They'd walked maybe 2 miles when Lyra heard it. The rhythmic thunder of horses, lots of them. Run! She grabbed Finn's hand and bolted into the trees. But the riders had already seen them. The horses wheeled, hooves pounding as they gave chase. Within seconds, they were surrounded. Lyra pushed Finn behind her, facing the mounted soldiers with her chin raised. If they were going to die, she'd die fighting. Easy, one of the riders said, dismounting. He was older, with a scarred face and kind eyes. We're not here to hurt you. Are you Lyra? She froze. How did he know her name? Who's asking? Captain Theron, commander of the King's elite guard. He moved slowly, carefully, as if approaching a frightened animal. We've been searching for you for over a week. The King? Lyra's mind spun. Why would the King care about me? Because you saved his life. The world tilted. The dying man by the boulder. The stranger with golden eyes who she'd given her shawl and food. That was the Alpha King? No, she breathed. That's impossible. Very possible. Theron smiled slightly. His Majesty has ordered us to find you and your brother. to offer you sanctuary at the royal fortress. Protection, safety, everything you need. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. And if we refuse, then we'll leave you alone. Theron's expression was sincere. But I hope you won't. The forest is dangerous, Lyra. Your brother is sick. You're both starving. The king wants to help. Why? Suspicion sharpened her voice. What does he want from us? Nothing. He just wants to repay a debt. Lyra looked at Finn. His face was still pale. His hands trembled from weakness. They had no food, no shelter, no plan. Winter was closing in. They wouldn't survive another week out here. If you're lying, she said quietly. If this is a trap. It's not. Theron met her eyes. I give you my word as a soldier. You'll be safe. She didn't trust him. Didn't trust anyone anymore. But what choice did she have? Okay, she whispered. We'll come. The royal fortress was nothing like Lyra had imagined. She'd pictured a cold stone castle, full of sneering nobles and cruel guards. Instead, she found a sprawling complex of buildings surrounded by high walls, bustling with activity. Servants hurried past, carrying linens and firewood. Soldiers trained in the courtyard. Somewhere, a blacksmith's hammer rang against an anvil. They were taken to a suite of rooms that made Lyra's breath catch. Soft beds with clean sheets, a fireplace already burning, hot water for washing, clothes that weren't torn or stained. This can't be real, Finn whispered, touching everything with wondering fingers. A healer arrived within minutes, a stern-faced woman who examined Finn thoroughly and then declared he'd recover fully with rest and proper food. She left medicine and instructions, then turned to Lyra. You're malnourished and exhausted. When did you last eat a full meal? Lyra couldn't remember. The healer's expression softened. Food will be brought shortly. Eat slowly. Your stomach needs time to adjust. And sleep, both of you. After she left, servants brought trays of food. Real food. Hot soup, fresh bread, roasted meat. Lyra and Finn ate carefully, following the healer's advice, but every bite tasted like heaven. Is this really happening? Finn asked around a mouthful of bread. I think so. Why is the king being so nice to us? Lyra thought about golden eyes and a dying man's gratitude. Because I helped him once, when I didn't have it. That's a good reason. She hoped so. She really hoped so. That night, after Finn fell asleep in his soft bed, Lyra stood at the window, looking out at the fortress grounds. Somewhere in this sprawling complex was the man she'd saved, the Alpha King himself. What did he want from her? What came next? She was about to find out. Because tomorrow, she'd been informed, the king had requested her presence. And when an Alpha King requested something, it wasn't really a request at all. Lyra met the Alpha King in his private study. She'd been terrified he'd summon her to the throne room, make a public spectacle of their meeting. Instead, a servant led her through quiet corridors to a modest room lined with books. A fire crackled in the hearth. The space felt almost ordinary. The man standing by the window was not ordinary at all. He turned as she entered, and Lyra's breath caught. It was him, the stranger from the forest. But transformed. Gone were the blood-stained rags and desperate weakness. Now he wore fine clothes that emphasized broad shoulders and a warrior's build. His dark hair was clean, pulled back from his face. And those eyes, those impossible golden eyes, were sharp with intelligence. He was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Lyra, he said her name like a prayer. Thank you for coming. She dropped into an awkward curtsy, not sure of the protocol. Your Majesty, please, don't. He crossed the room quickly, stopping an appropriate distance away. You saved my life. Formality seems ridiculous after that. I didn't know who you were. I know. That's why it mattered. His expression was intense. Do you have any idea how rare that is? To receive help without obligation, without expectation of reward? I just did what anyone should do. But they don't. His voice turned bitter. Most people would have walked past a dying stranger, or worse, robbed him. You gave me your only possessions and asked for nothing. Why? Lyra thought about the question carefully. Because I know what it feels like to be abandoned. To have the world turn its back while you suffer. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Understanding. How is your brother? He asked. Much better. The healer says he'll recover fully. Thank you for that. You don't need to thank me. I'm the one in your debt. He gestured to chairs by the fire. Please, sit. I want to talk. They sat facing each other, the fire casting warm light across his face. Up close, Lyra could see the faint scar on his ribs where he'd been wounded. Her shawl had left that mark. I need to understand something, Cale said slowly. The night I was attacked, you were clearly running from something. You and your brother were alone in the forest, starving, desperate. What happened? Lyra's hands clenched in her lap. Our village was destroyed. The tax collectors came. They take children when families can't pay. I ran to protect Finn. The tax collectors. His voice went cold. How much did they demand? 5 silver coins per family. 5 silver? He looked shocked. That's triple the legal amount. Who authorized this? I don't know. We're just common people. Nobody tells us anything. Cale stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His shoulders were rigid with tension. This is the 4th report I've had in a month. Villages being overtaxed. Children taken. Families destroyed. Someone in my government is stealing from my people, and I can't figure out who. Why does it matter? The words came out sharper than Lyra intended. You're the king. You have power. What do you care about a few dead villagers? He turned to face her, and the anguish in his expression caught her off guard. Because I swore an oath when I took the throne. To protect my people. All of them, not just the wealthy ones. My father was a tyrant who ruled through fear. When he died, I promised myself I'd be different. But if I can't even stop my own officials from terrorizing innocent families... He trailed off, jaw clenched. Lyra saw suddenly that he wasn't what she'd expected. He wasn't the cruel, distant king from her nightmares. He was young, maybe late 20s. And he was trying, actually trying to do better. The guard who led the raid, she said quietly. His uniform had a wolf crest with 3 stars. Does that mean anything? Cale went very still. 3 stars. That's the insignia of the Southern Division. Commander Marius oversees that region. His eyes narrowed. If Marius is behind this, what will you do? Find proof. Then justice. He looked at her. Lyra, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm going to fix this. I promise you. Don't make promises you can't keep, she said softly, echoing the words she'd spoken in the forest. He smiled slightly. I keep my promises, always. They talked for hours after that. Cale asked about her village, her life before the raid, what she'd witnessed. Lyra found herself opening up, telling him things she'd never told anyone. How her parents died in a plague, how she'd been raising Finn alone for 3 years, how every day was a fight just to survive. And Cale listened, really listened, with an intensity that made her feel seen. When she finally left his study, the sun was setting. A servant led her back to her rooms, where Finn was already asleep. Lyra stood by his bedside, watching his peaceful face, and tried to process everything that had happened. The Alpha King wasn't what she'd expected. He was complicated, angry at injustice, determined to fix broken systems. And when he'd looked at her, really looked, she'd felt something shift inside her chest. Something dangerous. Something that felt almost like hope. Over the following weeks, Lyra saw Cale almost daily. He'd summon her to his study, ostensibly to ask more questions about the village raids. But their conversations always drifted elsewhere. Books they'd read, foods they missed from childhood, dreams they'd given up on. Lyra learned that Cale had inherited the throne at 18 when his father was assassinated. That he'd spent the last decade trying to undo centuries of corruption. That he had no mate, no family, no one he truly trusted. It's lonely at the top, he admitted one evening. Everyone wants something. Alliance, power, favor. No one just wants me. I want you to stop, Commander Marius, Lyra said. Does that count? He laughed. That's different. That's wanting me to do something good. I'll allow it. They'd discovered Marius was indeed behind the illegal taxation. Cale had dispatched investigators, gathered evidence, built a case. Soon there would be a trial. Justice. But something else was building too, between Cale and Lyra, and connection that had nothing to do with debts or gratitude. It happened in small moments. The way he smiled when she entered a room, the way she found herself thinking about him at odd hours, the way their hands brushed when passing books and neither pulled away. It was dangerous, Impossible. A king and a commoner. And yet, one night, after another long conversation, Kale walked her back to her rooms personally. They stopped outside her door, and the air between them felt electric. "Lyra," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart hammered. "What?" "The night you saved me, I was cursed. Couldn't shift, couldn't heal. I was dying." He took a step closer. "But when you touched me, when you gave me that shawl and your kindness, something happened. The curse started breaking. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to keep me alive. I don't understand. True selfless compassion is rare magic. Powerful magic." His golden eyes held hers. "You broke a witch's curse without even knowing it. And you did something else too." "What?" "You made me believe in goodness again. In people worth fighting for." He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek. "You made me believe in possibilities I'd given up on." Lyra couldn't breathe. "Kale, I know this is complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this can't work, but I have to tell you the truth." His thumb traced her jaw. "I'm falling for you, Lyra. Have been since the moment you gave a dying stranger your only shawl." She should pull away. Should say this was impossible. Should protect herself from inevitable heartbreak. Instead, she leaned into his touch. "I'm falling too." His smile was like sunrise. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He kissed her then, soft and careful, as if she were something precious. Lyra melted into it, her hands fisting in his shirt, her heart soaring. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. "This is going to be complicated," he whispered. "I know. The court will lose their minds. I know. I don't care." Lyra laughed breathlessly. "You might care when they try to assassinate me. Then I'll protect you. Like you protected me." He pulled back, his expression fierce. "You're mine now, Lyra. And I take care of what's mine. Possessive much? You have no idea." But he was grinning. They kissed again, longer this time, and Lyra felt the future rearranging itself around them. Dangerous and thrilling and utterly terrifying, but also right. Because sometimes, the people who save you become the people you can't live without. And Lyra was done pretending she didn't need this. Need him. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The announcement came 3 days later. King Kale Ashenblade, Alpha of the Northern Territories, was taking Lyra as his mate. The court exploded. Lyra stood beside Kale in the throne room, facing a sea of enraged, noble faces. Lords and ladies who'd been vying for their daughters to catch the king's attention for years. Military commanders who'd expected him to make a political alliance. Advisors who'd assumed he'd choose someone with power, wealth, status. Instead, he'd chosen a starving commoner with no title and no connections. "This is madness." Lord Corvin slammed his hand on the table. "Your Majesty. She's nobody. She has no training, no education, no proper bloodline. She has kindness," Kale replied calmly, "and courage, and a strength most of you couldn't comprehend. She's a liability," Lady Morgana hissed. "The other packs will see this as weakness. They'll think you've lost your mind. Let them think what they want." Kale's voice was steel. "My choice is made." Lyra wanted to sink through the floor. Every eye was on her, judging, weighing, finding her lacking. She didn't belong here. These people were right. She was nobody. But then, Kale's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently, reminding her she wasn't alone. "There will be challenges," Commander Theron said carefully. He was one of the few who seemed to approve. "Other alphas may test you, Your Majesty. Try to prove your judgment is compromised. Then I'll handle them." Kale's tone left no room for argument. The meeting dragged on for hours. Objections, warnings, thinly veiled threats. Through it all, Kale remained unmoved. He'd made his choice, and he wouldn't be swayed. Finally, as the sun set, he dismissed the court. They left, muttering among themselves, shooting dark looks at Lyra. "That went well," Lyra said weakly when they were alone. Kale pulled her into his arms. "I warned you it would be complicated. They hate me. They don't know you yet. Give them time. And if time doesn't help," he pulled back, his golden eyes fierce, "then they can learn to live with disappointment. You're not going anywhere, Lyra. You're mine. And I'm yours. Nothing changes that." She wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at her. These people had power, resources, the ability to make her life miserable. As if reading her mind, Kyle cupped her face. Listen to me. You survived poverty. You survived running for your life. You survived things that would have broken most people. Don't let some entitled nobles intimidate you now. Easy for you to say. You're not the one they want gone. No, I'm the one who will destroy anyone who threatens you. His voice dropped low and dangerous. They can scheme all they want, but if anyone tries to hurt you or Finn, they'll learn exactly why I'm called the Iron King. A shiver ran through her. Not fear. Something else entirely. You're terrifying when you're protective, she murmured. Good. You should know what you're getting into. She kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and desperate affection into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Cale rested his forehead against hers. We'll get through this, he promised. Together. But the court's resistance was just the beginning. Over the next month, Lyra faced constant sabotage. Servants, accidentally, destroyed her clothes. Invitations to important events mysteriously never reached her. Ladies whispered cruel things just loud enough for her to hear. The worst came from Lady Morgana, a powerful noblewoman who'd been trying to marry Cale for years. She made it her personal mission to remind Lyra of her place. Enjoying your little fairy tale? Morgana cornered Lyra in the garden one afternoon. Let me tell you how this ends, darling. He'll tire of you. The novelty will wear off. And when it does, you'll be cast aside, like the common trash you are. Lyra lifted her chin. If he wanted you,